I have never preached before in my entire, I started in 1982 preaching. And I have never preached about Shiloh. Okay? Shiloh. That's a word out of the Bible. Did you know that? Of course you know it. Of course you do. So, I have two very brief verses. One from the Old Testament in 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter. And then we'll move to the Gospel of John, one verse out of the first chapter. Now, Shiloh is mentioned 33 times in the Scriptures, primarily in 1 Samuel. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's Joshua, isn't it? Oh, my goodness. Primarily mentioned in 1 Samuel and Joshua. So that's where the 33 times comes from. So I better get to Joshua. Where is Joshua? It's in here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, my. Okay. This should be a good day, huh? So now I'm there. Are you ready for this? Evidently, I'm not. Then the whole congregation of the Israelites assembled at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. And the land lay subdued before them. And then from the Gospel of John, the good news according to John. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen His glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Shiloh was a town 18 and a half miles north of Jerusalem and south of Samaria. Samaria, you know, would become the capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel. Jerusalem would later become the capital city of Judah, the southern kingdom of the Hebrews. So Shiloh is located right in the middle of the Promised Land. It is well placed for the Israelites to discern what they're going to do with the Promised Land. Now, the first portion of the Scriptures around Joshua, 1 Samuel, and so forth is all about the war of taking over the Promised Land. It's not easy reading. There's a lot of bloodshed. if you read those chapters, you begin to wonder if anyone's godly by the end of it. But God can use even wrong things to bring right. Our God's so resourceful. And so, the goal of the promised land, what God wants for it, is it to be a place of justice and generosity. A place where people can worship the one true God. A place where meanness ceases. A place of peace. Now, scholars debate a lot over the meaning of Shiloh. I don't think the town is located where it was, nor is it accidental that it became the headquarters, but it's not accidentally named either. It's symbolic. Shiloh, some think it's close to the word for shalem or shalom, which means peace. So Shiloh would then be a place of peace. You will recall that peace means wholeness. It's the word in the First Testament that corresponds to the Greek word soteria, which means salvation. Wholeness is what salvation is all about. So when peace happens, people feel whole. There's some goodness in the relationships that come about. There's a unity. There's a correspondence of one soul to another. So it's sometimes thought Shiloh means a place of peace. Did most of you know that? Probably most of you knew that, right? Well, it's also close to the word for Sabbath, which means rest. So it can also mean possibly a place of rest. So we worship on the Sabbath. Now, we changed the Sabbath, from Saturday to Sunday because Jesus was raised on Sunday. But now, no matter what day you worship, the Sabbath is a place of rest, a time of sacred repose, a time to worship and reflect and then even take a nap if you can, all right? So if you take a nap this afternoon, just know you're doing a sacred thing, okay? I give you permission. I will write you a permission slip to take a nap. All right. So a place of rest. We come here and we carve out this time because we need rest. We need a time where we're not on our phones. We don't have to answer to anyone. I know some of you are probably on call, but we need a time where we're together as people. Because your presence, your very presence, encourages the person next to you. We can sense the Spirit of God in each other whenever we gather as 2 or 3 in the name of Jesus. Now, there's one other thing about Shiloh that I've discovered. There's a place where it's used as a proper noun, a name. not as a name of a place, but the name of a person. So every now and then you may have met someone who has the proper name Shiloh. All right? But in the passage in Genesis, Shiloh as a name is thought to refer to the Messiah. Now, this would be the idea of the Messiah before there was an idea of the Messiah. All right? It evolved into the Messiah. They looked back on Genesis and said, well, you know, that could be taken to mean the Messiah. And so there, the name is just slightly different. But we think it means the one to whom all belongs. And certainly all is to belong to our Messiah, Jesus. Would you not agree? Yes, all is belong. And when all belongs to God, we get peace and rest. Now, Joshua brought the tent of meeting to Shiloh. So I imagine when the saints of Shiloh Church so many years ago were looking for a name, they probably chose it because the tent of meeting, or another word for that you may be more familiar with, is the tabernacle. The tabernacle. That was moved to Shiloh. Now, the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, the idea for it was given to Moses by God. There are 50 chapters in the First Testament, the Old Testament, that describe the nuances, the construction, the worship that's to take place there, how the sacrifices are to go, what's to be on the walls, how wide it is, how high it is, what's to be inside, the sanctuary inside, the Ark of the Covenant, all of that, 50 chapters devoted to it. Must be important. What do you think? The tent of meeting was where the glory of God would periodically descend upon the tent. God was thought to be enthroned on the mercy seat. The mercy seat, you know, is the lid over the Ark of the Covenant. Once a year, the high priest would take the blood of an innocent lamb and sprinkle it over the mercy seat, so that all the sins of the Israelites would be forgiven. And then they would also have a scapegoat and drive the goat out so that all the sins would go away from the people. So the tent of meeting was a place to meet God. And isn't that why we're here? We're here to be in the presence of God. Now, a long time ago, a couple of dear people with the last names of Shaw and Williams decided that this Wesleyan movement they were seeing of these people who were called Methodists. You remember that Methodists was a term of derision. Did you know that? John Wesley and his fellows had a holy club at Oxford. They met every day. They got up early in the morning for prayers, write letters. They carried their Bibles with them. They were called Bible moths. They would visit in the prison several times each week. They fasted for 24 hours, twice a week. In fact, one of their members overdid it with fasting and got ill and died. But they stood out so much because they were seeking holiness, and they were so methodical about it that they were called Methodists. You know that, right? So it's a term of derision. We were made fun of because we do things in a methodical way. Now, the Spirit can still work in methodical ways. Do you agree? Yeah, you can have liturgy and the Spirit work in it. You can have the Spirit in all kinds of places. So I'm grateful for that. So they met because they were attracted to this new idea, Methodism. And they had classes. And classes were the beginning discovery. To enter a class, you simply had to say, and that's my granddaughter. Any other child I would ignore. But I tell you, they get my attention. And I'm so glad that my son Michael is right there on the end. Hey, Michael. So they're here. All right, so where was I? All right, so to enter a class, all you had to do was say, I want to depart from the wrath to come and find out what it means to live a holy life. That's all you had to do, all right? And so they entered into classes, and they went on for 10 years here on these properties. And then after 10 years, people begin to die. And so they put people who died in what was called burying grounds. They didn't call them cemeteries back then. Burying grounds. And the first one, and I looked this up, and maybe you've read it, you already know it, but the first person that we have a name for in our cemetery is Roxana Hardin, who died in 1822 at 11 years old. Can you imagine what grief rippled through those Wesleyan classes? It was not easy to grow up in America in the early 1800s. About the average life expectancy was 40. You didn't live long. Now, they decided they needed a church building. And aren't we glad they did? And it's out there still, isn't it? Now it's been, they added a steeple and they added some things on the back. I don't know what else they added. But it's there, one of the oldest buildings in Hamilton County. Right here. Dedicated to God as a place of meeting. That brick building out there, by the way, I think John Shaw gave $34 of bricks to get it started. The whole building cost $303. I spent that in gas last month. It was probably named Shiloh in about 1831. That's our guess, maybe a few years before. They didn't start the Wesleyan classes and say, well, we're Shiloh. No, they didn't do that. It took a while. But they met 200 years, saints, a place of rest, a place of peace, a place where everyone belongs to Jesus, a place to meet God, where the glory of God can descend. This is a beautiful thing. We are to live in the presence of God. Now, I had a dream before I came here. Do you believe God talks in dreams? I do too. I've been keeping a dream journal since 1983. I record every dream I can remember. I have scads of journals filled just with dreams. I've been to seminars on how to listen to God in dreams. I have a whole stack of books this long about dreams. All because I thought, well, if God talked to these people in the scriptures in dreams, well, maybe God talks to us in dreams, and it's not just something to laugh at breakfast. All right? But we forgot the language, haven't we? Most of us don't have a clue, and in fact, most of the time, I don't have a clue. What was that about, God? I have no idea. No idea. Because the hardest dreams to understand are our own. Because God is usually telling us something that we don't know. All right? But I had this dream, and I was working in my office late at night, which is not unusual. I am a late night guy. I feel it's holy to be an early riser, but I've never pulled it off. Okay? John Wesley would talk to me about that. But anyway, I was working in my office late at night in the dream, and I'm all alone, and it's really pretty dark. And I hear steps coming down the hallway outside my office. Now, it's late at night. No one's supposed to be in the building. And in the dream, I am terrified. There is now an intruder. Okay? So, being the courageous person that I am, I dropped down to all fours behind my desk. And I am down there trying to hide from the intruder. There comes a knock on the door. I don't answer it. No way. I'm just trembling behind the desk, down on my hands and knees, looking at the ground. And then the door opens. And light fills the office. I cannot hide. I look up and I see in the doorway a figure of total light. Love is coming from this face that is nothing but light. So imagine the silhouette of a person who is pure golden light. And it's all coming at me. And I am just trembling now because I'm in awe of the light, and I wake up. Now, would that dream get your attention? It got mine. I struggle yet today to figure out, what does that mean? Well, I know I don't have it all figured out. But one thing I do have figured out is we can get so busy working for God, talking about God, that we forget to be with God. Richard Foster, a Quaker, got his book here somewhere. He says this: God has graciously allowed me to catch a glimpse of his heart. And I want to share with you what I have seen. Today, the heart of God is an open wound of love. God aches over our distance and preoccupation. God mourns that we do not draw near to God. God grieves that we have forgotten God. God weeps over our obsession with muchness and manyness. God longs for our presence. Presence. That's why we're here. Oh God, you're here. Your presence. At Shiloh, a tent of meeting, a place of rest, a place of peace, a place to say, we're here with you, God. And we have a long history of being with you. And it's marvelous. And it's beautiful. And we don't want to tamper with it. We want to cherish it and love it. And we are grateful, aren't we? We are grateful for the presence of God at Shiloh. Now, God's many places, but thank God that God is here. Amen.